The Outer Side is proudly supported by Tie Gear. Head to www.tiegear.com to explore the wide range of high-quality camping essentials, including guy ropes, screw-in tent pegs, tie-downs, and heaps more. Tie Gear. Adventure secured. Dog and Gun Coffee. Check out www.dogandguncoffee.com to grab yourself some bloody good coffee ready for adventure. G'day and welcome to The Outer Side. I'm Tony, and in this episode I'm joined by Josh Bollen. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, mate. How you going?
Very good. Before we get into it, I'm going to ask you the fast five. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you're going to answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
Let's have it.
What was your first job?
First job, cleaning up in a butcher shop after hours.
Very good.
Yeah.
What's at the top of your bucket list?
Top of my bucket list. It's actually not something I thought about. I try and just punch stuff out as I want to do it now, but definitely, mate, I don't even know. Shooting wahoo, a fish, definitely is up there now. I remember the first time I saw that on a spearfishing, a film, I guess, and just the colour on them, the crazy looking fish.
When they're all lit up, that'd be pretty cool.
Man, full turquoise.
All right, so you do a bit of cooking, and one of the things that I chuckle at frequently is on your Instagram you have written, "I'm not a chef, I'm just a bloke." Yeah. So following on from that, what is an underrated kitchen appliance or gadget that you use?
Rice. Well, I was gonna say rice cooker. It's probably not underrated, but I'm no good at cooking rice. I enjoy cooking, but mate, rice is something that I can't be bothered with.
That's funny. I've been having that conversation with my wife lately because I keep saying we should buy a rice cooker, and she's like, "But it only does one thing." I'm like, "Yeah, but it does it really well," and I don't. Yeah. So, good answer. If you could have an unlimited supply of one thing, what would it be?
Raw fish, fresh raw fish, but premium fatty condition. Had some slimy lately. A lot of people maybe don't like eating it, but super fatty and cured in salt for 24 hours, and then we did a little vinegar pickle. So shime saba, which is a Japanese dish, and that I could eat that every day, non-stop.
Good answer. You'd be pretty healthy if you had. Well, I don't know. I don't know how that would go for your heart.
Yeah, maybe not the cured part.
It's omega-3. It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
And following on from that, what would you eat for your last meal?
Same deal.
Same thing? Yeah, good.
That's it.
All right. So, mate, you're a spearo. You do a lot of cooking.
Yeah.
So how did that all start for you? Did you grow up around the ocean, or how did you get into the spearing to begin with? Yeah,
man. I was pretty blessed to grow up on Sydney Northern Beaches. Super lucky. Parents happened to give birth to me there, so I was very lucky. And but not fishing, not really. I've always loved food though. I think that's where everything really started for me. I got real interested in the idea of hunting and being a lot more connected to my food, because I think people become very disassociated, I guess, from food, what it is, where it comes from, how it's made. And for me, again, was privileged and lucky to have my parents expose me to a lot of different food. And I think that kind of started when we were young. My brother more so was a bit fussy, so to encourage him to try different foods, we had the whole thing. It was the dollar as a kid is that's everything. And so it'd be you get a gold coin if you try something new.
Okay.
And so my mum always spins the yarn that we were out in Coffs Harbour or something, and they had these big tennis ball looking things, and I really wanted one. It was $5 or something, and they were no, you can't get that. If you earn some money, maybe you can, blah, blah, blah. Went out to a restaurant, and there was some mad seafood tower, had all the crazy oysters, fish, this and that on it. And I ordered that because I'd never tried any of it. So I got $5.
Yeah, full baller. The seafood platter.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was the exact seafood platter, but it was something that had all these different elements that I'd never had before, and probably cost my parents a bit. And,
but I got more than the $5 tennis ball.
But I think it was more the premise for them, and that I'm really grateful for them to have exposed me to that, because it made me aware of what's out there and wanting to pursue that. And as I've found now, as I've grown up a bit more, it costs a bit of money to go out and eat, and you can't always go out to a nice restaurant. So the next best thing for me was learning how to make good food that I liked. That's kind of where the cooking thing started for me.
And the fishing came along with that? Was that because you wanted high quality protein?
Yeah, I think so. I got really interested in hunting and kind of like did a lot of reading and watching people and all that kind of stuff, and realized that there's a pretty big barrier to entry for hunting, especially when you're rifle hunting, bow hunting a little less so, but still a big barrier to entry, I think. And then I sort of saw Brody Moss, YBS, early days, like crazy, because he used to make like these like 6 spearfishing movies, and then he disappeared for a few years and then kicked off what he's doing now. And I'm not even sure. I don't think he's making that many videos now. He's just kind of living the life.
Yeah, he's living off that YouTube revenue and probably selling a ton of merch.
That's so good on him. It's so good.
But yeah, I remember those videos you're talking about, like just hectic music and just action packed, like them just nailing fish. Hey?
So I think that kind of exposed me first to spearing and going, okay, wow, like I spent a lot of time snorkeling, getting out in the water and that. Wasn't a massive surfer, but loved animals and things. So the spearfishing thing for me is like, keeps my brain a bit more active than the line fishing. I kind of get a bit bored and restless with the line fishing. So the spearfishing, there's the other elements and engaging. And for me, that's like, keeps me kind of focused.
Yeah, and I mean, it's no surprise, right? Like if you've got an interest in hunting, that spearfishing is like the logical progression. It's a form of hunting in its own right.
Absolutely. And I think that's a lot of linos who don't understand it see spearos come out of the water with a bunch of fish and go, oh, that's easy. Like I could do that. Like this is the real skill in that. But there's skill in both, absolutely, and but just in completely different ways. And I think, like you say, I really enjoy the hunting aspect. And like when we were out the other day and we were shooting these slimy mackerel, they're only small fish, and the other boys are out there chasing kings and bonnies and that. And I love all that as well. But when I know that something like slimy mackerel is in peak season, super fatty, like I love just chasing them around, and when you've got carpets of them all around you, like it's pretty tempting.
That footage. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, it was mad.
It's an interesting thing, and something that appealed to me about what you're doing is that, you know, if you want to chase trophies and big, like, I don't care, good on you, like, but you are more than happy to take fish that aren't like, I guess you'd say desirable, or like in the traditional sense of the word. So they're not like the big trophies. It's things like slimies and, you know, goatfish, like you got one hanging there, and things that are probably, I don't want to say unusual, but they're not like those, you know, really renowned like trophy species.
I think they're coming, a lot of species like that are coming into the awareness a bit more now, and people are looking at it more for food and things. And I think there's a lot of old school mentalities and thoughts about what's good and what's not that have come from old school linos and even old school spearos a lot of the time. Like it's interesting even between the old school spearos and linos how their opinions on things differ and what's good and what's not. And
Bonito's a prime example, man.
Yeah, and everyone seems to be all over it now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, right? So like on the Central Coast, there's still a perception with a lot of people, and you can tell like dudes that have been on the coast their whole lives, and they've obviously learnt from their, you know, uncles and dads and granddads, and they're like, oh, Bonito's cat food. And I'm like, all right, let them go, man.
I'll take them.
Just let them go, because I'll eat them.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, before we started filming, we were chatting about how people treat the fish before it's eaten. And I think a lot of the reason that certain species are seen as undesirable is because they've been treated poorly.
Absolutely.
Like if you don't bleed an Aussie salmon, it's not a nice thing to eat.
Yeah.
But if they're treated really well, like Aussie salmon are fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, I think it's really good what you're doing there, like bringing a bit of awareness to some of those, well, you know, less popular sort of species, but that are far more sustainable, right?
I think so. And you got stuff like bonito, man, like where they're growing, I think it was in the first 3 to 4 months, they grow to 30 centimetres. So that's a solid meal. Like for 2 people, that's a lot of food for 1 meal or maybe 1.5 meals. And like 30 centimetres in 3 to 4 months is insane. And then they're reaching sexual maturity after like a year or so. And and then you look at other species like the big fish and like you're talking trophies that people are chasing, like big Jew and things like that. Like they're still not like living crazy, but like they're an old fish. And like once you see some of the, especially the old school spearos, like they've got photos of them like with a truck bed full of like big mulloway. And like then now they're going, and like I understand there's a multitude of factors into why fish disappear from a system, but those same guys with those photos are now going like, oh well, where are they? Like there's not as many now, like what's happened? And it's like, well, like a little bit of that, man. Like a little, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of old school, and I think you sort of touched on it. The people who've learnt from other people, and there is so much of that, and like I think in indigenous term of like song lines and like how things get passed down, and that coming from the fact that indigenous people teaching things through song and dance and everything. But like again, that's so relevant to line fishing, spearfishing, hunting, all of that, because you tend to kind of learn from the people around you.
Of course you do. Yeah.
And you trust what they have to say because they probably are catching fish, shooting fish, or catching deer or whatever it is. So you trust their word, and then you just keep it in your little bubble, and you don't tell other people because you don't want them getting in on your stuff. And yeah, it's an interesting world now with social media where you can kind of share information, and there is a fine balance, I think, in oversharing sometimes. And it's a fine line to dance.
Yeah, and I think like with fishing in particular, like I've never been a spearo. It's something that I'm really interested in, and I'm doing like a bit of breathwork stuff at the moment, trying to learn how to hold my breath and all that. Man. But it's even if you've got all the information, it's still hard.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like you can read as many fishing books and watch as many videos as you want, but like it's still difficult. And I think that's where I agree with you. Like there is a fine line. You don't want to be like blowing up spots going, oh, you know, this is a great spot to go fishing and post that all over the internet. But I love the fact that it's still a challenge. And I love the fact that with social media now we can be exposed. And I know, like, I've watched a lot of your videos where you're talking about, you know, eating Aussie salmon and eating bonito. And it's good. Like, we should encourage that rather than everyone focusing on, like, snapper. And, you know, like those, I guess, like more conventional kind of species.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with them as well, but...
Mate, I love eating flathead. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
Diversify, for sure.
Yeah, and I think there's benefits to the different species as well. Like, as you said, like, slimy mackerel are fantastic to eat. But most people will go, what is wrong with you? Why are you eating a bait?
After 3 to 4 days, then they're terrible to eat. Yeah. And if you haven't chilled them from the moment you catch them to the moment you eat them, they're also terrible to eat. So because they're such... Part of what makes them a great fish also makes them not a great fish if they're not handled entirely properly.
Is that the oiliness?
That's the oiliness. So they'll oxidize.
I've gone and I'm meant to be the host of this show, and I've got my phone and it's not on silent. So there we go. I've done well.
How no phones on set there.
Shut this thing up. Sorry about that. Please back to it. So yeah, it's the fat content and the oil content in them that makes them spoil quicker. Is that?
Yeah. So I would say it's the oiliness. So you'll find. So I shot them in like mid-morning one day, and then had them on, not in a slurry, because I'll be making another dry edge fish series, because I got a bit of flack on the last one I made about saying I don't use an ice slurry for my fish.
Yep.
Mainly, and I've come to realise now the difference in spearfishing and line fishing, and I sort of touched on it earlier with you, is that when you're spearing fish, you're actually like, you're wounding them like to capture them, and ideally you're dispatching them very quickly after that, but you are wounding them, introducing bacteria to the meat and potentially exposing the gut cavity, which you don't want to do. Like, there's nothing wrong with putting fish in an ice slurry if they're completely intact. But if you have a fish with a pierced gut and it's leaking stomach juice everywhere, that stomach juice is going to start interacting with the meat and like breaking down flesh, and none of that's ideal. So I'll make another video soon going over that, and why I got a few people stirred up over the idea of no ice slurry. But
well, that's the beauty of the internet, is no matter what you say or do, people will get stirred up, and it's fantastic for your algorithm. So you encourage that.
That's it.
So you obviously have a real interest in like the science aspect to the, you know, to fish as food. So have you trained, like have you done any kind of like, you said you're not a chef, but like have you done any study on food, or is it just stuff that you've learnt yourself?
No, well, so I worked in hospitality, so I'm a chippy now, but I worked in hospitality for 3-4 years after school probably, mainly like on bar and like front of house, but I would always be sort of going back, hanging out with chefs and talking to them, because that was kind of my people a bit more, was like rough and rowdy types like that were usually out the back. So I'd hang out with them and get ideas, and they would feed me. And I worked in a bar in Newtown for a bit, and in the UK in a bar and all sorts. But the one in Newtown was really cool. It was Rising Sun Workshop. Shout out to those guys.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, the chef that was working there, would like give me, if they had like an extra oyster off an order, or they would like an extra oyster, like an odd one or whatever, he would send it over to the bar and give that to me, and I'd go and eat there and have good food. And like I just happened to find that they had a vacancy or they needed someone to work, and there was a hatted restaurant, I guess, so it was pretty lucky. But yeah, always. Again, I think it's just the food vein, just been interested in food and dived into it head first. And it's been interesting because I'm kind of learning about food as I'm making content about food, which has ended up in like some people online getting cranky, and as we said, good for algorithm and that. And I don't mind it, honestly.
Mate, I'm learning how to make a podcast as I make a podcast, so, you know, it's all good.
It's, you know, you're figuring it out. We got multi-skills and you're trying to piece it all together and figure it all out. And
and I think for a lot of people, like, showing your mistakes and then going, hey, like, I said this and now I've learnt otherwise. Like, it's really good to be, like, quite open about that, because not everybody, well, no one is an expert in everything, right?
Exactly,
like, It's a really interesting thing, and I guess to the not to the untrained eye, but like when I look at your Instagram feed and then you say, I'm not a chef, I go, I don't know about that. Like, you're definitely not doing like average home cooking, right?
Yeah, so like I'll clarify that part. It's more that like I would feel guilty taking the title of chef, because there's a lot of people who I give and steal ideas from, but like there's a lot of people who invest. So I would love to be in the cooking and food industry, which I feel like hopefully I'm kind of weaseling my way into it. Yeah. But I couldn't be a chef, and I've thought about it a few times, but the lifestyle I couldn't do.
Oh, it's
and
hectic,
like, even the bar lifestyle, like it's not as bad here, but when I was in the UK especially, like I would start work 10 a.m. some days and then finish at 5, 6 a.m. the next day. And like, I'd have an hour break in the middle of that, and I'm not sure how legal that was, but I was doing it and living above the bar. So, you know what I mean? So that was enough for me, and I knew that would not be a sustainable lifestyle for me. Yeah. So to be a chef and to see the work and the effort and the passion that some of these guys put in and dedicate their entire lives to, and the sacrifices they make in their social and personal lives for what they're creating and what I like to enjoy, I would feel guilty taking the title of a chef.
Yeah, of course.
So I would always take the title of a cook, but never a chef. Yeah. So and I think like the spearfishing club I was part of in Sydney, North Shore Underwater Club in Northern Beaches. Definitely, if you want to get into spearing, everyone asks me, check out your local clubs, because they're going to have the most information, local information, all the older guys who've been exploring that area forever. That's super important, and it's going to be the best way to do that and build actual relationships to find out information. I think that's the important part, not just asking someone online, where do you go, because I want to go there.
Yeah. That's the same for everything. Like, you know, like hunting, fishing, even four-wheel driving. It's like, there's a lot of people who just expect information to be handed to them. It's like, no, you got to kind of learn. You got to do the hard yards a little bit. Are you a member of a club up here?
I am, so Central Coast Sea Lions.
Oh,
so I think it's the last Thursday of every month usually. There's a meeting at Wamberal Country Club, Breakers Club, and it's usually a sort of bit of going over, like everyone does a little, how you going, how you been, have a beer, and then we do a little recap, who's been out diving, what are you seeing, how's the water been, and unfortunately on the Central Coast it's a lot of, we haven't been in, the water's dirty, but...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's something about the way the currents work. So Sydney, the Hawkesbury pumps out and then travels north, so we just cop it straight away up here, and I've moved from Sydney where we have beautiful clean water all the time, and as soon as you get a southerly and it blows through, cleans up all the water, and you got 20 metre vis, and then that same southerly that cleans Sydney just pushes it all up to the Central Coast, and it's usually after rain. So
I've noticed that up here, like, because I'm a Sydney boy originally as well, and like the fishing in Sydney and then the fishing up here is so different, and it's only an hour away. Like, it's unbelievable. But even with the sea surface temperature charts, like you look and it's always like hot water off Sydney, hot water like north of Foster, and then the bit where we live, I'm like, why are we in this little vortex? But I suppose that just then adds further weight to, you just got to adapt and chase different species and that sort of stuff.
Definitely.
Right?
But you also get like quite different fish on the coast, I've found. And like we do see a lot more. I'd say there's a lot more exotics on the coast than you see in Sydney.
Just because of the way the currents flow, or?
No, I'm not particularly sure, if I'm honest. I like to be honest, I'm not a very good spearo. I've spent 2019. I've spent 5-6 years doing it now. Yeah. So like I'm not new, but some of the boys I dive with, I'm like, oh wow, like
20 years,
well, not like same as me, but like you were made for this. Like I'm trying to piece together like 5 different things and put it all together in this, and I just enjoy chasing slimies. But then the mates good mates I got now and been lucky enough to dive with, like Josh Ward, president of Central Coast Sea Lions, shout out to you, mate. Just shot a
cobia I saw on Instagram.
I don't know if Josh did.
There was a photo I saw.
He shot a wahoo recently.
Yeah, there was a photo I saw, I think it was today maybe, saying that the president had shot a cobia.
Oh wow, there we go. So, there you go. I haven't seen that one yet.
There's been a few cobes around here lately.
I have heard. Yeah. I'm yet to actually eat one. So
mate, they're unbelievable.
I missed an absolute blinder, like in Coffs. We were diving way offshore. Mate, Coff's been a doozy for me. I've had a few boats drift away and whatnot, but been doozy. But yeah, missed a few coves in Coffs, unfortunately.
They're unbelievable.
I've heard.
If you like kingfish, then cobia's next level. So when you say exotic species up here, what do you mean by that?
I'd say more like you kind of blow in fish.
Oh yeah. So from like further up north.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Just the experiences I've had up here, it seems like there's a lot more. And I don't know if there's a lot. The guys up here and girls, but mainly guys in the club, are mainly chasing more exotic fish because they have access to up north a lot more and going away a lot more. But I mean, in Sydney, you got mainly headlands. You don't have much offshore terrain. It seems like up here is a bit more offshore, and people are chasing like some very different species. Like mulloway is like quite popular to be chasing up here, but opposed to Sydney, it's a bit of a rarity, which seems interesting.
That's true, actually.
And I don't know if that's to do with the Hawkesbury and the way it's coming out, or
it's probably got something to do with
whatever it might be. The pressures from Sydney in years gone, and
there's been some cracking mulloway getting caught up here in the last few weeks, and I can say that because this isn't going to come out for about a month. So by the time this happens, they'll have already been gone. But yeah, even off my local, there's been a couple of belters in the last week, a couple of 120s, 115s off the beach.
Epic.
And it's funny you say that because I've never really thought about it, but I've got a few mates that spear in Sydney, and it's pretty much all kingfish, right? Like that's what they're chasing.
Sydney's an epic kingfish spot as well. Yeah. We got all the cliffs and stuff, and you see it we got the Kingfish Cup once a year. You're usually around when the run starts, like November, October, November, and Sydney's Central Coast did win it a couple of years ago, but Sydney's kind of consistently been more fish coming from there, bigger fish coming from there. I think some guy shot. I think there was a few 25 kilo plus kings from Sydney last year. It's
crazy, man. Yeah. I grew up in Sydney and I fished Sydney Harbour pretty much my whole life. And from when they banned commercial fishing in the harbour to now, it is a completely different fishery. Yeah, right. It's unbelievable the difference that it made.
Just the volume of fish?
Or just the bait, right? Because they were prawn trawling it. So all of those smaller fish, all the bait and the prawns, of course, that were getting taken out of the system are now there. And it's that whole food chain that's developed. And the kingfish fishery in Sydney is unbelievable. Yeah. I know there's a lot of talk at the moment about is the stock under pressure, and there's a lot of people who are very passionate about it, and I don't know enough about it to comment. But what I saw was that the quality and the volume of fish just increased exponentially after they pulled.
The fish traps kind of killed them for a while. The kingfish traps kind of killed them for a while, and then they're sort of on the rebound now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion around mulloway as well, and about the pressure that they're under. And,
that is an interesting one. It's one of those ones, and I think there is, I don't know how political you normally get. I don't particularly have an opinion on it, but I do find it interesting to watch how the battle between hunting, fishing, and greenies, as they like to passionately clash heads, and how there is this approach from a lot of hunting, fishing people that they don't want anything to be changed, anything to be taken away from them, because they think that the greenies are going to come for everything, and then it goes back to, like, I don't hear much of the greenie side, but like it goes both ways, kind of back and forth. And as much as the hunting fishing people are like, we do want it to be sustainable, we do want to be this, they also sometimes don't want to hear about what might need to be changed or whatever. I think, and I get it, because there are a lot of people who think that you shouldn't be hunting and fishing and that you should just buy your stuff from a supermarket. And I think that's an absurd opinion, because where's the supermarket stuff coming from then? And like, we can't just like have everyone living off supermarket stuff, and it's not how it works. And it's completely against what I believe in, being connected to my food at least. Like, I don't know if we can support everyone living like I try and live, but to have everyone at least connected to their food to a greater extent, I think is a lot more important, is very important. But yeah, I am amused quite a lot by the kind of back and forth, and how there is this kind of butting heads and no one wants to change and things. And there was stuff like the groper ban recently and stuff like that does charge dumb. People. Exactly. Yeah, it's not as done. It's like, and like the stuff I see online, because I'm a part of like a bunch of different Facebook groups that aren't necessarily about spearing, but they're about diving, scuba. Like there's a Viz page from Sydney. And
even like the battle between scuba divers and spearos, it can get pretty heated, right? And
like, but the opinion you see from some of those people who are completely well-intentioned, but the awareness isn't there to like something much broader. And like, I dive spots all over the place, and cuttlefish have been in the spotlight a few times, and like, personally, I think maybe there should be some sort of season on them, because they are very vulnerable to spearfishing, especially during the breeding season, which is when they mainly get shot.
Yeah.
And they do have a short lifespan, but they can be pressured very heavily. They're very subject to temperature changes in the water and everything like that. And again, in the breeding season is when people are mainly shooting them, which to me feels iffy, because then you're kind of potentially like depleting the stock on an even larger scale if you're like not allowing them to breed. So, but there was a big debate for a while, because a lot of people who were into snorkeling and scuba saw cuttlefish getting shot, and cuttlefish have this emotional reaction for a lot of people, because they are interesting, they're pretty intelligent and stuff, and like people start putting emotions onto them and like anthropomorphizing them, or however you say that one. And
I'm glad you tried to say that, because I was thinking of that word. I'm like, I don't know how to say that word, but we'll have a crack.
Yeah, we'll have a go.
But yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Putting human feelings onto an animal.
And people trying to say that there's none around and they're disappearing, blah blah blah. But you've dived one marine reserve in the middle of Sydney, whereas like I dive like every headland in Sydney and I see them consistently. So like, don't start telling me that we need to completely ban it or whatever. Like,
and I've personally used hundreds, if not thousands, of them as live bait in Sydney Harbour. So there's heaps of them.
Yeah, right. So like, I think that's the thing. There's a nuanced debate to have, and it's not always easy. And sometimes there's other people who know a lot more than you, who've experienced a lot more than you. Maybe we need to be a bit quieter and listen to what everyone has to say. And yeah, the groper one was pretty wild to watch, because again, I've had people tell me that you only get one big blue one per reef.
Wrong.
You only get this, you only get that. The Gus, that fish was the one that been there for 40 years. I was like, I could dive that spot tomorrow and I'll probably see 6 more of exactly the same bluefish. Like, there's plenty of them.
Yeah, I've done enough snorkeling to know that there ain't just one in at a particular area. Like, you've got them like bumping into you from all different angles, and you're like, okay, they're not that fast.
Nah.
Yeah.
I think if you were to allow spearos to hit them, they'd put a massive dent in them.
That's what happened in the 70s, right? They were nearly extinct because we used to spear the crap out of them. But I think that particular instance was so dumb. And I think I've talked about on this show before, but the fish that was killed was shot illegally.
Yeah.
So then putting a further ban on a different style of fishing that wasn't responsible for the illegal shooting of the fish in the first place is dumb.
Absolutely.
And then just recently they've extended the ban.
I've seen that,
And the data that they used was using fish traps baited with, or camera traps baited with pilchards, which groper don't eat. And then they came out and said, the groper have actually moved south and offshore because of fluctuations in sea temperatures. So we're going to extend the fishing ban. It's like, what sense is there in this? And I think I fully agree with you. Like, I'm not extreme right, and I'm definitely not left. But when you get the extreme right and the extreme left, and they're fighting with each other online, you read it, and it's like no one's right.
No.
It's all just emotionally charged, and like it's great to be passionate, but I think what you just said is so relevant. Like, we've got to listen to each side, and we've also got to listen to the science behind it, right? So if there's a really well conducted study and the data says, hey, we should have a seasonal closure on this species to allow them to spawn, great.
Yeah.
Like, recently in New South Wales, I'm going to say recently, I'm going to show my age here, it was probably ages ago, but when they introduced the slot limit on flathead, so
that's
saying...
like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a few years ago, right? So like any flathead over 70 centimetres must be released. Good.
Yeah.
Like, I'd chase flathead a lot.
Yeah.
And you don't get fish over 70 centimetres all that often. And when you do, like, they don't taste great anyway. So that the 40 to 50 centimetre fish taste brilliant.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of thing, it's like, if you're truly passionate about fishing and sustainable food, like, no one should argue with that, right? But you're right, there's this sort of attitude in amongst a lot of the outdoor recreation community that, like, no, we just have to stand our ground on absolutely everything.
Yeah.
But it makes us appear narrow-minded.
I think so, and I think that doesn't ingratiate yourself with people who are more than likely well-intentioned. And I think well-intentioned and under-informed people can be extremely dangerous.
Yep.
And the only way that you can ensure that those people are informed is to be patient and to try and show yourself in the best, most respectable way, and to not like belittle other people. I think it just speaks to life more broadly as well.
Just
you know?
be a
like,
nice person.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm not saying that like hunters, fishers, all that kind of stuff aren't nice people, but I think the attitudes towards well-intentioned people who, again, they're probably coming at you like in a pretty horrible way. But it's hard because in this world where we are so disconnected to our food now, and I'm going to say it in terms of food, I know a lot of people like the sport of all of it as well, but for me it's about food, and a lot of people can't comprehend it at all. They can't understand it. They've never been around it. They've never grown up near it. They've lived in the city or the suburbs their whole life, and they couldn't understand why you would want to do that when you can buy perfectly good meat in a vacuum sealed container that you get a little bit worried because there's a little bit of red that you think it's blood, but it's actually like the protein, whatever it is coming out of the meat.
Hemoglobin or whatever it is.
That goodness. So like, I think, the unfortunate reality of the world we live in is that there's a lot of people who don't understand it and can't even comprehend why you would want to do it now.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think something that I've got to continue to remind myself is not to do battle with the extreme left, because you're never going to win and you're never going to convince them. Like, I saw a PETA, like PETA, post come up on my Facebook the other day, and it was like saying about, it had this like cartoon of someone catching a fish and then releasing it, and then the fish died, and then it's like little fish family are like mourning it, and all these comments are like, wrong, like fish don't live in family groups, all this stuff, and like all these obviously pro fishing people were like teeing off on this post. I'm like, don't even waste your time, boys. Like, you're never going to change the opinion of those people. And it's the same with like four-wheel drive access. You know, I'm really, a really big advocate for responsible four-wheel drive access. But trying to argue with people who think that there should be no four-wheel drive vehicles in existence is a waste of your time. I think where we need to focus is the 80% in the middle.
Absolutely.
Not the 10% on the far right, and not the 10% on the far left, but it's the people in the middle who either don't care or don't have enough information to form a logical opinion. And I think spending the time to educate them, you can start, they might not jump in the water and go spearing, but they can at least have an appreciation for what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said for, I guess it's like a cliche, but like be the change you want to see in the world kind of thing. Of like, I don't know, like what you were saying just then, like what came to my mind was the idea of like prove it then. Like don't just go do battle like verbally or like in the comments with people, but like be that example and like prove it. Like I was very upset by some of the competitive spearfishing I saw in Sydney. And like A lot of people just saw fish as points, and they would just shoot them and kill them and put them in a big bag. And then like there's all sorts of old yarns about people like taking the boat when they go home and driving back to the boat ramp, but just dumping all the fish on the way home, and like shooting fish that no one wants to eat, but they get your points, so you shoot them. And like you're never gonna eat them, or like, and like I'm not against shooting fish for my dog, like fish that are plentiful, but maybe I wouldn't eat. Like I'll shoot them for the dog, but I'm like, there's a lot of fish that get shot and then don't end up getting eaten, and I think that mentality also drives a very poor representation of the sport or what I'm doing, which for me it's about connecting to my food, but I didn't like what I saw in all of that, and I wanted people to treat their food better, treat their fish better. And for me, instead of saying, oh, I don't like what you're doing, it was like, well, I'm just going to go and do it better and show everyone and be like, hey, this is pretty cool. And hopefully more people start doing it. And maybe it's because of the bubble, the little echo chambery bubble thing I've made online, but I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people, and I don't know, maybe this sounds a bit but I feel like I see a lot more people now treating their fish better, exploring species, chasing different things, and getting excited about stuff like slimy mackerel, about bonito. And I don't know, it's cool to see. I think that was going to change in our worlds without me or not. I think that's just the way things were going. People were becoming more informed. People like Josh Nyland and Bosley McGee now. I don't know if you've seen his stuff.
No, I'll check that out.
Yeah, so Bosley was working for Josh, I think, and I think now he's doing his own thing with a guy from New South Wales called Craig? Oh, mate, I'm so sorry, I've forgotten your name. Oh, no. But Southeast Seafoods is his thing. Yep. So he's an absolute legend. Talk to him every now and then. And they were mainly chasing slimies. That's how they kind of built that partnership, I think. And now they're doing Southeast Cutting Room, I think is Bosley and his thing. And they're chasing all big goaties, catching them online. I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know how you chase goaties online, but good on them, because not everyone seems to be doing it. And again, another awesome fish that doesn't seem to get utilised heaps. So,
but the people that know.
Exactly, right?
When someone goes, goatfish, you're like, okay. The wink sort of thing. And I think, you mentioned Josh Nyland. I just commented on one of his posts today saying Lord of the Fish, because that's how I see him, right? He was, I'm going to get it wrong, but the scaling method, the Japanese Tsukibiki, and he was doing this blue eye trevally, and there was a bunch of chefs on there going can you please not make that look so easy? Because it's now of course he's done a few, but his book was a complete eye opener for me, and I think for many other people, right?
And I think that's what really changed the sort of collective opinion about fish and food and everything. For a lot of people. Yeah,
and it's funny, I'm similar to you in that I just love food. So fishing for me, I fish for sport, but I also fish for food, right? And if I don't have fish in the fridge or the freezer, I'll kill them. But I won't go and kill as many fish as I possibly can, right? I'm lucky now. I live close enough to the water that if I want fish, I can usually go get some.
Yeah.
But I always took that extra bit of time to learn a bit more about bleeding them, gilling them, gutting them quickly, ice slurries or not, or, chilling them down and all that sort of stuff. But even for me, I've done that for a long time. But then reading Josh's book was okay, I'm at below amateur level here. There's way more to learn, and he's an unbelievable guy.
Oh, definitely. And I think to do it at, again, chef.
Chef. Proper chef.
You know what I mean? So
he worked for Heston Blumenthal, right?
I didn't know that.
He worked at the Fat Duck.
There you go.
So top level, not just a chef at the local club. He's been there. But I think what he's done in terms of broadening the understanding of what is possible with fish is unbelievable.
Definitely. And I think like you're saying, opening people's eyes, and that extra level of care that I think, again, some of the old school guys kind of go, oh, what's the point? It's not worth it. You don't get that much better, blah, blah, blah. But it's not even that. It's just but just a couple of simple steps along the way, you can elevate the product and end up with something that's far better, keeps for longer, and is just like better to eat in the long run. And it's just a few simple steps that other people maybe not taking. Like.
And there is an element of respect.
Definitely.
Because you're taking an animal's life, right? And
Absolutely.
I'm not, like, I'm a meat eater. Like, I'm not like, oh, it's cruel or anything like that. But you've got to show respect to the animal. Like, you're killing it, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, even last night, right, I filleted a couple of flathead. And one, I was like, I know why I don't do this very often, because it's, like, time consuming to, you know, properly get all the pin bones out of them and everything. But I'm looking at the frames and I'm like, there's still wastage there, right? Yeah. So we cook a lot of fish whole at home. There are certain fish I won't cook whole, like we were talking about earlier, like drummer. I'm not a fan of whole drummer. I'll fillet them, but you know, I think what Josh is doing about like using the scales, and I know you've done some videos on that stuff, and I think it's just really good that we all like think about it a little bit more and utilize the protein as much as we can. So when we talk species, you've mentioned goatfish a few times. Is that sort of towards the top for you? Like, if you could have an unlimited supply of a particular fish available off the coast here, what would it be?
Probably goatfish.
Yeah.
Like, again, like, and that's something else I've started to learn more, that the seasonality of different species. So like I was saying, like the slimy mackerel at the moment, like I've shot them before and they're not that fatty, but like these ones, even in the gut cavity itself, just a ton of visceral fat, just around the organs and that. And then once you start cutting the meat, you can see the marbling. Like you'd almost get like utoro and that in tuna, and like through the neck and that. But goatfish, I've had like Spanish mac, like good winter, like fatty Spanish mac as well, and that blew my mind. I think that might be some of the best fish I've ever tried raw. It was like buttery, crazy. But in terms of New South Wales East Coast fish that are like super easy to find, there's heaps of them. You can find them year round, and they're generally pretty good. Would have to be goatfish.
Yeah, right.
And like just through chance of spearfishing and finding them and trying them, and I think they're a bit more popular for spearos, but linos, it doesn't seem to be really much chatter at all, just because they're not a very common species to catch.
Nah, they're possibly snapper bycatch when you're fishing reefs, like inshore reefs, possibly. Yeah. I think I've caught one in my life.
Yeah, okay.
And I've fished a lot.
Yeah.
But they're definitely not something that you go and target online, generally speaking. Yeah.
So they're an interesting fish to hunt as well, because they are quite inquisitive and they'll like travel in schools. So if you're lucky enough to see them from the surface, you can kind of like, they're a good like way, and like they've definitely have been my learning and testing ground for how to hunt fish, because you'll kind of come down on them and then they'll be like in a school and you try and like wait until you're sort of watching them until they start feeding, and then you'll come down and chill on. They're usually on like gravelly flats as well, because they eat with the barbels on their chin. They're flicking around in the sand looking for crabs and prawns and that. Like this one, when I clean some of my fish at home now and look in the gut just to see what's going on, and again, like these on like full of crabs, full of little like crabs, and that's how they get so tasty.
Yeah.
And they'll chill on the flats, and then you kind of line on the bottom and just be like real calm, like real slow, like don't go chase them. And then if you like toss a bit of sand up, they'll come and have a look usually, and like come right into you, and then so like put the gun out and aim it up, and then take a shot if you can. So they're fun fish. So
that's pretty cool. And what sort of depth are you like? Are you?
It's always, everyone always loves to ask, but the deepest I've hit was probably about 17 meters.
Okay, so pretty...
but I haven't touched that in a while. And like I was out of the water for like 3 months, so back on the south coast, just briefly while I was camping for a couple dives, and I didn't really get over 8 meters. Okay. And then we went out on Friday and then Sunday as well on the coast, and I only got down to 11, 12 meters. Yeah. But man, like if you can hit 10 meters, like you'll see plenty of fish. And like, and you get on a lot of reefs, you don't need to be diving too deep to have a good time. Yeah. Like I'm not gonna gas it up and be like, oh, you don't need to dive 10 meters. Like you don't need to dive 30 meters. But if you can dive 30 meters, you're gonna be shooting better fish. Like that's the reality of it. Like a lot of people, I don't know if it's just the spearfishing community, but I feel like there's a few white lies here and there sometimes to try and encourage safety a bit more, and
which is probably for the best, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I dive by myself a bit,
Yep.
and like my missus isn't always stoked, but she's an amazing chick, and she lets me go and do it, and doesn't have anything to say as long as I come home with fish.
Yeah.
But like, I really enjoy it diving with no one else sometimes, because you can really get into like the mentality of it and the hunting and the being quiet and the focus and everything, whereas you're not, like, I'm by nature a bit more sort of socially anxious sometimes, so I'm sort of thinking about other people, what they're doing, what's going on, but if I'm by myself, it's just me. But yeah, I think it's good to dive with other people, because it is dangerous, and it's risky, and you got to accept those risks, and I've encountered a few of them over time, but yeah, I think there's a few little white lies here and there.
Yeah, and I get that. I do a lot of rock fishing. I do a lot of rock fishing solo.
Yeah.
You know, at not dark, but like pretty
Close
dark.
to it.
And you know, I do all of the things that you're not supposed to do, but it's calculated risk, right?
Absolutely.
And if there's been a few times where I'm like, it's definitely time for me to leave now, because I'm like, it's getting sketchy. But I think it's the same with spearing, right? Like, you can take a calculated risk. Obviously, it's not ideal if you're starting out. Like, for me, someone that's done nothing, I'm not going to be going out solo, you know, at least at the start.
I started diving by myself. I didn't have any mates into it. And I look back on what I was doing, and like, I'm like, I don't know if I'd dive those spots solo now that I know what's around.
As
like
in sharks and that sort of
stuff.
Sharks,
and mainly sharks, man. Like, that's the one thing that still sweats me a little. Like, I've seen a few.
Have you had any spicy encounters with sharks? Or
spicy, but not like, the day I see a white, I'll blow a hole in my suit. But like, and I'm waiting for it. It'll come. Everyone's had a few. I had one here and there. But like, I got mates that, like, it's interesting how your perception of sharks changes when you do start diving, and how I think a lot of the instances of, like, definitely guys have been attacked spearing, but a lot of the bad attacks come from surfers, ocean swimmers, things like that.
People that are floating on the surface looking like a seal.
Yeah, and splashing and not overly, like, aware of what's going on, but they're not, like, acutely aware of where they are, what's happening around them, which I feel like with spearing you kind of are. You're definitely going to get snuck up on. Like, I've had grey nurses like shoulder charge me and stuff like that, but like, they're also just kind of like giving you a bump and like, what are you doing here, kind of thing. But yeah, I think the bad attacks I've heard of have all been non-spearo related. Spearo's getting maybe clipped or something because they're trying to fight a fish or whatever. But for the most part, and that's what I've learned, is that like most sharks aren't eating mammals. Like big bull sharks maybe are, whites definitely are, but bronzies, nurses, things like that we normally see, they're really only eating fish. And like,
so they don't see you as a food source, so you're not really at risk.
They see you as competition. So they will, if they get real fired up, they'll have a go. But it's not worth it for them, for the energy expenditure and the potential risk to, when they can just get a pretty easy feed. A fish isn't going to injure them as much if they're just chasing a fish, whereas if they're trying to get a fish off you, they calculate that risk a bit more, I think. They will still have a go sometimes, and I've had them fired up, and like, you give them a good poke or whatever, and they'll come and like have a good investigation of what you're doing. But
so I've got a couple of mates that have had encounters with whites over the last sort of 18 months. I'll send you a video of one. There's actually a guy I've had on this show before, Tommy from Performance Tourers. He was at one of the fads off Port Stephens, and they had a proper one, like 4 meters plus. And he was saying the dudes he was with were like, I don't know if they're marine biologists, but like they're right into it. So they were like, this is the best day ever. And he was like swimming around with it. He's like, all right, I'm out. Like, and got back in the boat. And he said one of the other boys jumped in, and then this thing started getting like a bit
feisty,
bit sort of twitchy, and like the fins went down, and they're like, okay, we need to get out of the water now because this thing's getting too comfortable with us. But you know, they were like, this is the best day ever. And he's like, I hope I never repeat that day. So have you done much blue water stuff?
I have. It makes me very nervous. I enjoy it. I've actually only ever shot one dolly.
Yep.
But it's pretty cool. And like, so I've been out a few times with like full slack current, and that's crazy, man. Like, you're just in. This is actually like the part of what it was for spearing for me was that I used to be terrified of water where you can't see the bottom, and so I started, and I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna just head first into the thing that scares me, and now here I am, and I'm spearfishing in like a couple 100 meters of water. But yeah, slack current, really cool. But when the current starts pumping, I get very nervous. Yeah. So like when we're in Coffs, I don't know did you know Coffs much?
A little bit, yeah.
There's a bommy called Shankty Shoals.
No, I don't know that.
So off the Coffs main ramp, like, someone's going to get upset with me, maybe 5 nautical miles. Yep. I don't know how far that is.
So pretty far out, yeah.
Fairly far. Like, you can see land, but it's like fair way. Like, you could swim it if you have to, but...
yeah, you're not keen.
Yeah, we went out and with a guy from a Sydney club and his boat was in pieces and didn't really tell us till we got up there, and things weren't working on it that should have been working and whatnot. And anyway, we had a local guy who we were mates with up there. He jumped in the boat and was boaty, and he didn't really run him through anything. We didn't do a little safety run through on the boat. Like, something I'm going to do on all my boats coming up now is going to be like toolbox talk in the morning. What's going on with it? Do we need to change anything? This is where safety gear is. This is any little problems that I have been having. Just keep an eye on. Maybe not. Ideally, not going out like that, but sometimes you do. Yep. And we're on Shankty Shoal, and it's 30, 40 metres all around, and gets to 10 metres at the top. And my mate said he's seen a white there the size of a combi. Combi bus just coming through. And I looked up after us just drifting on the reef for a little bit on the bommy. Boat was a little bit away, and I was like, okay, like he'll come and loop around in a sec, come back up current, and then drift past us again. Just head back down, spurling up and stuff, like putting dead fish in the water, and expecting Spanish mackerel would come past any second because we'd seen them the day before, and it was real fishy as well, and like nice current coming in. And then look up again, boat's a bit further away now, and I can see him, the boy who's in the boat, standing on the gunnels. And he's like doing these ones, and I was like, oh, like to my mate. So the guy's boat we're with is a bit older, and then the other fellow was my age, and I was like, oh mate, like there's something, it's not feeling sweet. Like we need to figure out what's going on here. Like maybe we should swim to the boat while we still can, kind of thing. And he was like, no, it's sweet. Like we'll stay on the reef. Like this, like we know we're here. He knows we're here. Like blah blah blah. Like if anything goes wrong, blah blah. And then look up again, boat's out of sight. Oh no. Gone. And we're like way offshore in heaps of current on this bommy in like 30, 40 metres all around, and mate's seen a white there before, and I just shit it immediately. I was like, this. And I started like I feel like I handle myself alright in those situations, and but I was like pretty panicked and like telling my mate, I was like, nah, like we can't keep fishing, like we have to sort this out now, like we got to figure out and decide if we're going to swim to the boat or we're going to like try and stay here. And we're like tossing and turning over what we do and calling out to the guy whose boat it was, and he wasn't happy that we wanted to stop fishing and set up. And yeah, I'm not getting on his boat again. Shout out, mate. Sorry. I'm not getting on your boat, man. Yeah, the boat drifted and we were in current, and so took off my weight belt and tied my float line to it. And like I've got like a little D clip that slides onto the weight belt, and dropped my weight belt down on the reef to hold onto the float line to hold in the current, and the D clip just went just straight off it, no. And I was like, fuck. So then my mate, who's got a much better breath hold than me, he dropped down the reef and got my belt back up and tied it through the buckle, and yeah, eventually we both just had our weight belts off on the bottom, float lines hanging off them, like towing in the current because we wanted to stay on the reef, and he knew what was going on, and probably drifting on the reef for a couple of hours. And matey was still burleying fish and carrying on and wanting to shoot fish. I came here to shoot fish, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to shoot fish. And we're like, okay, whatever.
But couldn't see his boat?
Couldn't see his boat, didn't care. He's like, he's probably busy sending emails or something. And so next thing we know is, like a couple of hours later, police boat came out of Coffs Marina, south of us, probably a couple 100 metres, and went out to sea. And then was probably like 100 metres east of us, and then came north. And yelling, screaming, spear guns off, fins out of the water. I had a 1.3 metre spear gun with bright red bands on it, my fins and everything, waving them around, nothing, and like full going horse. And then they went up, clearly met up with matey with the boat. He told them there was divers in the water around Shankty Shoals kind of area.
Yeah. And
then they came back down, looped around, and this police boat was like the size of a ferry, man. It was hilarious.
Yeah,
so I was like, oh, this is going to be big bill.
Yeah, yeah.
No bill?
No.
So, happy days.
That's the rules of the sea, isn't it?
Oh, you'd think so, but when it's this guy, when it's your fault, like, it feels like maybe it shouldn't be, but
so what was the go? Was the boat broken down, or he just wasn't paying attention?
So 2 batteries in the boat. He switched it to second battery, which was cooked. Because he was trying to charge it, didn't tell anyone, and made in the boat turned it off, or it turned off for whatever reason, and then he couldn't get it started again, and he drifted 2.5 kilometres away from us. And the police boat, let's just shout out, anyone doing offshore stuff, take a big float with you, or I'll probably do it now more, is you can get the little, like scuba divers have a little tube thing that you can inflate, because we were yelling, screaming, waving everything up in the air as high as we could. They couldn't hear us, couldn't see us. The only thing they saw was my little orange float on the water.
Crazy, eh? I've obviously at GME we sell EPIRBs, so I've chatted to a few people who've been rescued, and like that's the one thing, or especially talking to like search and rescue guys. They're like, you can't see anything at sea. Like, you need to be on top of it to see, and that's why obviously beacons are so good, because they can home in on the actual beacon. But yeah, it's amazing, because you think, oh, but I can see them. Why can't they see me? But you know, a little bit of chop, bit of wind, and
So yeah, that's what makes me sweat about blue water stuff. I get kind of like a bit of flashbacks about that, but
fair enough.
Yeah, it's just how quick, and like that situation, we could have drifted up to like Arawara and stuff. Like we could have got there, but it was just one of these times where it was like, we're on a fine line right now, and it's not terrible right now, but it could go very bad very quickly from where we are right now.
Well, especially if a white the size of a combi showed up.
Yeah, it wouldn't help.
Yeah.
Nah.
And I guess like for people who don't spear or don't spend time in the water, like, I mean, I'm conscious of sharks. I swim in the ocean a lot, like as in, you know, like it's a bit of ocean swimming, that sort of stuff. But I still think about it all the time, and I think it's healthy to have a consideration for them. But
definitely,
it's interesting to hear what you said about, like, you know, the more time you spend in there around them, you realise that most of them aren't out to eat you.
Yeah.
I guess it's just the ones that potentially could eat you.
Yeah, and they'll sneak up on you as well. That's the problem.
And if you're in a couple of 100 metres of water, they've got a lot more places they can sneak up on you from, right?
But I think you're saying like your mate's swimming with a 4.5 metre white. Like a shark like that, there's nothing. If it decides it wants you, like there's...
Yeah, you're not going to stop it.
Yeah, you're not poking that thing. Like you can poke like a big bull or like or like a big bronzy or something, but like... If a big white decides,
that's
like,
1,000 kilos.
It's time.
Yeah. And hopefully it's quick.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. So the majority of your spearing then is like rock hopping stuff, or are you going out of a boat like around here?
A lot of rock hopping. So like always rock hopping when I was in Sydney, pretty much, and then got on a few guys' boats. But it's a somewhat gated community, like the boat community, and fair enough, because like it is. Yeah, you want people who are respectful and who pay their way and care and want to help you out when you do have a boat. Because it's a lot of work having a boat, and it costs a lot of money. So take another 100 out or whatever.
Bring out another 1,000.
Yeah.
My favourite one is the 2 happiest days of owning a boat are the day you buy it and the day you sell it.
There's a few in between.
Mate, I've been lucky enough to have one for a little while now, and it's like it's a whole other dimension, right?
Oh,
like I love fishing off the stones. I still fish off the rocks far more than I do out of the boat, just because it's easier.
Yeah.
Like I can duck down there before work.
Yeah.
But having a boat opens up a whole bunch of opportunities.
Yeah.
So you've obviously done a bit between, you said South Sydney up to sort of Coffs. Have you done anything further afield?
Not really. I like New South Wales South Coast.
Yeah.
I really like that. It's a beautiful spot, and you don't get quite as many exotics as we were sort of talking about. And like, you still get a lot of fish because it doesn't have any pressure particularly. And I think you can still see a lot of good fish. And even somewhere like Bermagui and Bateman's and all that, it's so close to the shelf, so for like tuna fishing and stuff, which, mate, I'm so keen to do one day. Like, I want to get a nice tuna. And I'll get on the line for that even if I have to.
Yeah, 100%.
To shoot a good tuna one day would be epic as well.
Yeah, well, I watch lots of spearing stuff and people shooting doggies, and that's where I think you need a bit of a breath hold and being able to dive a bit deeper, right?
Absolutely.
Like, they're pretty intense
Big
fish.
cannon of a gun as well.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So what sort of gun are you using around here? You mentioned a 130.
This one mainly is a 1 metre roller gun, and Weddy was kind enough to, Drew from EKF in Eden, he hooked up, teed that up through Weddy and everything as well, and I got that. It was cool, it's an interesting gun. Like, I've no dramas with it so far.
Yep.
And I've used Rob Allen previously though, and I always recommend Rob Allen to people. Yep. Like, I don't have any contract obligations to Weddy, but I'd recommend their guns as well. I think they're just as up there with Rob Allen. Maybe Rob Allen's like maybe a tiny bit more durable, but like I've had no problems with this one, and it's got a stainless steel mechanism in it as well, which is really nice. Rob Allen has a nylon, and it's super durable, and you don't have to, if you don't wash your gear, it doesn't really matter. But I do like the metal stainless. It's like more clicky and punchy, and I like a really punchy gun as well.
Yeah.
So the 1 metre roller is more than enough for everything around here.
So heaps of grunt, but still like manoeuvrable. Is that?
Yeah, the shorter gun's a bit nicer, like easier to get through the water and tracking and everything. Which, as I've got more experience, the tracking thing is less important, I would say, because you learn to like tuck the gun into yourself, and you try and do the bulk of your movement while it's in close to you, and then when you have your shot picked out, you kind of reach out, and it's more like you're not looking like down it and trying to like line it all up. It's an instinctual kind of, you kind of start to learn where it's going to shoot, and same as when you like throw on a ball or something. And I think the same as like compound bows a bit different, but the recurve bows or that kind of thing, like once you shoot it enough, you kind of get a feel for...
Bit of muscle memory. And
you get a feel for where it's going to go, so you kind of just point, and then you're ideally looking at the thing you want to hit and where you're going to hit it, and it's a weird one. Like,
I get it, man. I've done a fair bit of like trap and skeet shooting, and it's absolutely that. Like shooting a shotgun at a clay is very different to shooting a rifle through a scope. And it's funny, you talk to guys that are really good at like trap shooting and skeet shooting, they're like, don't shoot rifle if you want to be good at this, because it's so different.
You'll overthink it. Probably.
Well, no, you just the way that you operate the two is so completely different. They're like, you can tell you shoot rifles all the time. You're like, shut, mate. Like, unfortunately, I can't shoot, deer with a shotgun effectively. So, but it's very interesting, and it's like, I think for spearfishing, like for me particularly, having line fished my whole life, I want to learn how to spearfish just because it's like another challenge. Like it's another way to do it. Not the same thing, but
another expensive way to get free food.
Yeah, exactly. Another really expensive hobby because I need more of them in my life.
Yeah. I mean, that was a Shrek from Noob Spearo quote, that spearfishing, and probably like all of these things, hunting, fishing, it's always the most expensive way to get free food.
Dude. Yeah. I laugh about it all the time. Like, I was cleaning up my shed earlier today, and I was just looking at all the fishing gear going, oh my God. Like, at the moment, we're like, each flathead that I kill is probably like 10 grand. Just like, like, you think like boats and kayaks and fishing reels and line, and you just go, oh, but there's more to it than that, right?
Oh yeah, it's a lot of things in one, which I think is really cool.
So, in terms of your food, like, and I'll drop a link to Josh's Instagram in the video. You do some amazing stuff, man.
Thank you, mate.
Is there anything that you want to do that you haven't done? Like, is there like some new sort of skill that you want to explore in terms of the cooking stuff?
Nothing. Like, I have a list of ideas. I always try and have an ongoing list of ideas, because I mean the content game is all very like keep it coming. So I've been a bit slack lately, been very busy a few months, but like we went to Japan, and like that was awesome for like opening my eyes again to food. And the biggest thing for me is like actually going out and trying food and seeing what is being made out there, and then coming home and being like, I want to try and make that.
Yep.
And recreate that. So, because like for me, like going out, eating good food, it's a lot of dopamine, and I get a lot of pleasure in that regard to it. So to come home and be able to recreate that experience as best I can try and get a bit of that dopamine that I got from it, you know? So
I fully relate to that, mate. Yeah. Like as an ADHD kid from way back, I love a bit of dopamine. So yeah, and that's what so much of this is, right? It's like triggering those little synapses in your brain, right? Yeah. It's like it gives you pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's and it's good that you're doing it with food and not like crack cocaine, for example. You know, there's way worse things that you could be interested in.
Yeah.
You mentioned Japan. I've spent a lot of time in Japan over the years.
Yeah.
Is that your first time?
Was.
How good is the food over there, man?
It's incredible. And like, I think we're very blessed, like, especially in Sydney, like I did get to eat like really good food as well, but you have to go and seek it out. You have to go and find it and look for it and figure out where it is and know the spots and hear from people, oh, you gotta go here, you gotta go there and try this and that. And then it's expensive as well.
Yes. In
Japan, it's like, that's just the standard though. It's just everywhere and it's like that. And to me, that was like the accessibility of it was just like, oh, I thought it was going to be cheap as well. It wasn't cheap. Cheap if you eat the convenience store 7-Eleven sandwiches, which I did every day for breakfast. But like we were going out and eating at like, what do you call them? Izakayas and all that kind of thing. And because I wanted to like see like what are they making, how are they doing it, try and get as much information as possible. And yeah, we did spend a lot of money, and I'll definitely go back with a bigger budget. But
yeah, and it's interesting, you know, because like, I mean, as I said, I've been there, I think 11 or 12 times. I used to work for a Japanese company, so I had the benefit of going to Tokyo a couple of times a year. But everyone always says Japan's expensive, and I think it is. But then when I compare it to Sydney, I'm like,
it's on par.
I think it's about the same.
Oh, yeah.
But you can eat cheaply there.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you eat where the locals eat, then, and something you just said, which I will, you know, I'll stand by, is I think the quality of food over there is higher in general.
Oh, the baseline. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The 7-Eleven food is like so fresh and so good. And like you can eat like fried shit there if you want as well. But it's good fried shit.
Yeah,
like,
it's delicious.
You could also eat like really well just from the convenience store, which we did a lot of the time because you go for breakfast and lunch and then you go somewhere nice for dinner.
And anyone who hasn't been to Japan will be like, what, 7-Eleven? But like 7-Eleven in Japan ain't like 7-Eleven anywhere else.
Different
it's unbelievable,
story.
Hey. I would never eat sushi from a servo here, but I have eaten it from 7-Eleven and it's pretty good.
They're doing little onigiris actually at 7-Eleven here now. So
really?
I don't, not raw fish, but like cooked fish, and I've been getting around them, not bad.
Yeah, okay.
Not the same. It's not the same at all.
It's unbelievable, that country. Well, that's really cool, man, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with next, and I'm definitely going to plagiarise some of your recipes that you put up there. So I thank you for your time, man. It's been really enjoyable.
Thank you.
So, thanks a lot. And we will see all of you next time on The Outer Side.